Hello everyone and welcome to the Hobby Guard. In today's video we will be talking about darkness in media, any sort of media, music, art, movies, TV shows, books, video games, war games, role-playing games, TTRPGs, whatever sort of media you're into. We will be talking about darkness in it, the negative side, why it is important, why things like grimdark are so important to our development, and why I think they are in danger. Now, you can tell by my glasses that I have here sitting on my majestic nose that this is a more kind of serious video than I usually make, perhaps. So, I will make it perfectly clear here that this channel is not short form content oriented, because even though I do produce a lot of shorts, they have the purpose of expanding the channel. But the type of video that I want to get more into is more sort of a conversation. Even if I do sometimes edit a bit my videos, I try to be as less invasive as possible, because I think that we are so constantly bombarded by content, entertainment of all sorts, that we have really begun to lose the ability to just stop and smell the flowers. Stop for a minute and smell the flowers and just enjoy and appreciate actually the little things in life, or maybe not the little things, just the things in life, the things that we're presented with. And I think that degrades our lived experience. So yeah, this will be more of a conversational video. Feel free to jump in on the conversation at any point during the video. Feel free to comment, give your opinions. You can leave as many comments as you like. I appreciate all of them. So before we begin, following on the topic of the channel, which is my purpose primarily in this channel, is to create better hobbies by creating better hobbies, because I believe that humans do not exist to work, to slave away, and to grind all day or all night. We exist for more than that. We have more purpose than that in life, and so it is almost our duty to explore our true purpose more than work. If your job is what fulfills you in life, that's amazing. That's the dream. But even still, some of the most valuable things that humans have ever produced have not come out of a necessity to be productive. Not all of them, but some of them really. I would argue the most valuable things in life really just come from nourishing our souls without putting any monetary value or productivity value in it. And ironically enough, that's how we produce some of our more interesting things as a species, right? Some of our most engaging and impactful inventions have come from that sort of state where you're connecting with your true soul instead of looking for the profit necessarily in something. So that being said, I will begin the hobby meditation. So just before we dive into the topic of this video, we will begin this sacred ceremony, this time for yourself. So grab your miniatures that you're painting, or turn on your video game, whatever you want to do. This is your time. This is your hobby time. Your time for yourself, if you're so lucky that you can spare a few minutes to yourself. So please just leave my voice, my soothing Mexican accent in the background while you do whatever you want to do. I will be showing some stuff here on screen in case you want to look my way here and there, now and then, But let's begin with a meditation. Now I'm taking my glasses off. These are my professor glasses because, true enough, my friends, one of my many nicknames that they have for me is the professor. And yes, they're being ironic because yes, I am a moron. But anyways, that is truly one of my nicknames, the professor. So I'm taking my professor glasses off so that you know that now I am entering a more spiritual vibe, all right? And I want you to just close your eyes, take a deep breath. Let's slow this endless march towards death and absolutely nothing but work and death that we are on. Let's just slow it down. Take a deep breath and repeat after me. This is my time. This is my sacred time. This is my hobby time, and I deserve it. I serve a bigger purpose in life than just show up to work and do chores and keep people happy. My vehicle for existence also needs to be serviced, also needs its time at the shop, at the garage, to be repaired, to get pimped, to be enhanced. So I will be pimping my ride today. This is my time, I deserve it, there is no excuse for anyone to interrupt it unless it's an emergency, duh. And again, take another deep breath. And repeat after me if you will. No, wife, I love you, but I will not do the dishes tonight. They can stay. A couple of dishes can stay on the sink overnight. I am not bothered by that. If you are more than welcome to wash them yourself. Repeat after me. No, Cheryl from purchasing. I will not read and reply to your email that you sent 5 minutes before I left work because I had already explained in my other email previously all that you needed to know for the items that I need. It is not my fault that you cannot be bothered to look up that sales order for yourself and figure it out on your own. I'm extremely busy and I already gave you all the information that an adult should need, Cheryl. So no, I will not do overtime just because you're being lazy. So leave all that negativity of the world behind. And now let's begin. Now, putting my glasses back on. I hope that's better. So, you can see here, now that we have commenced our hobby ceremony, that this is our own time for ourselves and that we have established that we deserve it. Sorry. You can see here in the background that I have a drawing that I made myself many years ago. And you will notice in quite a few of my drawings that I have this love of the theme of darkness and light and the contrast between darkness and light. Now, I know fully well that I am not a great artist, and I know it because I don't get paid very much money for my art. But as I explained, I don't necessarily do it for money, so it doesn't really matter. I am not a professional artist. But yeah, you can see here, sorry, 1 second. I can pause the recording, I don't know why I didn't do that. Anyways, you can see here that I love the themes of darkness and light and the contrast between darkness and light. There's this beautiful word in the Spanish language that is tenebroso, which comes from tenebrism. Probably it's the other way around, but anyways, tenebrism is an ancient technique. It's a more extreme form of the Chiaroscuro technique, where the light, the focal point in a painting, is enhanced by very dark contrasts behind it. So you'll see a lot of this in Renaissance art. I guess I should show you some examples, just because obviously my art is not the best example. So you can see here some examples, Renaissance usually, of chiaroscuro, which is where tenebrism comes from, right? And this was enhanced by obviously Goya and even Da Vinci and many more painters that I will not start to name because I don't want to pretend that I am actually a smart person. But anyways, I know this much. And, some of these are very dark, but they are also very impactful. And sometimes we don't even know or understand why. They just talk to us. And so myself, I have always been very much inspired by these contrasts between light and darkness, and sort of going into the darkness to find your true light. That sort of hero's journey. If you are familiar with The Hero of a Thousand Faces or The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, or if you're into alchemy, going down deep, descending into the Nigredo to find the Philosopher's Stone, the blood of life, the Bloodstone. And here you can see my old selfie, which is not what I meant to show, but rather, more dark art. Metal. I have noticed a pattern over the past decade, mainly, where the art that we get presented with becomes more and more like enforcing happiness, enforcing positivity upon us, as if just ignoring all the darkness that the world holds, all the sadness, all the dark emotions that we can feel through life and come across in life, as if just shoving them under the rug, sweeping them under the rug, is gonna make them go away. And this is a terrible mistake. Much like the Emperor in Warhammer, he tried to suppress people's necessity for faith and for spiritual and religious belief and for religious congregation, and how that horribly backfired in the most catastrophic way imaginable. Well, just like that, I believe that when you just again sweep under the rug the exposure to dark emotions that people may come across, to, let's just call it, the darkness in life, which is not evil. It's a spectrum, but I'll get more into that. Let's just call it for now the dark, the grim darkness, the negative, the obscure, the macabre sometimes, the terrifying. The less people get exposed to that in life, the more they are not necessarily experiencing all the colors and all the tones that life has to offer. Now, this is something that became very clear to me in life early on when I moved to Canada, because again, I come from Mexico, right? And if you are aware of what's going on in Mexico right now, well, then you can have an idea of why I moved out of Mexico. But till this day, people that I meet, when I'm out with friends or at work, or, customers that I meet, whatever, all the time ask me at least once a week or at least once a month, someone has, since I came here for the first time, and this has happened, I've lost count of how many times this has happened, someone is like, hey, where are you from? Where is that accent from? And I'll be like, oh, I'm Mexican. I'm from Mexico. And then, of course, they don't believe me for the next following 5 minutes. And after I finally convince them that I am indeed from Mexico, they go, why would you come here? And I go, excuse me? And they go, yeah, like it's so beautiful over there. Why would you come here? And I'll just think to myself, oh, I just grew tired of every single relationship that I ever had, and every person that I've ever met, and every person that I love, and I grew tired of all the things that I have. I just had to get away. It's so refreshing to leave everyone that you love behind and start over. No, just kidding. I obviously understand where they're coming from, and that's not my point. But being realistic, I have been literally on the same week that I found out that a friend of mine got words that I cannot say here on YouTube while keeping it PG. And let's just say my friend is no more by a criminal. And when that has happened more than once, on the same week, someone will ask me, why are you here? When it gets so cold, why not just stay in Mexico, right? So, again, obviously, I don't expect people to know everything of where I'm from, and I'm not holding anything against them. But what this has come to show me is that when you are, and I have lived this myself many times in my life, and I'm sure you have as well, it's just part of the human condition. I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else, actually. If anything, I'm a big complainer myself sometimes. When you are not exposed to enough bad things, you start projecting them on whatever you find. You will project when you don't have those dark emotions. Perhaps you are privileged in the country that you live and you have safety to an extent. You still go through hardship. You're still gonna be exposed to a lot of those emotions, but you will project a lot of that darkness, a lot of that insatisfaction that you have within you, or dissatisfactions rather, sorry, into things that aren't necessarily that important, like politics. I know people hate it when I say that politics aren't actually that important, but if you could never ever know anyone's politics ever again, I assure you that if you are a politically oriented person, if you could never ever talk about politics with anyone again, I assure you that your friend group would change drastically, because you would start to hang out with people not because of what they believe in or the ideologies they might have, but because of how they actually act. And you wouldn't hang out with them because of whether they agree with you or not on a political level, but because they're kind of cool or not cool, you know? So, again, I'm not saying politics are not important. I'm saying they're not that important. So I believe that people, sorry, I hit the mic. People have become very paranoid, and we have started. I'll use myself as an example. Obviously, we have started to project our negative emotions on pretty much anything we can find. I don't know why I have my headphones on. I'm not listening to anything. I can barely listen to my own voice. Okay, that's better. Basically, we attribute those dark emotions to things that don't really necessarily deserve them. But I believe that manifests itself everywhere, and I think one of the main culprits is how much we have tried to soften the media that we consume, how soft everything has become and is becoming. Some people have gotten mad at me in the past, for example, when I have argued that Warhammer is becoming a lot less grimdark. And that's something I'm fully willing to get into in different videos into that topic. I literally made a video about like how cartoonish Warhammer has become in the past, even though it was always silly to an extent. That doesn't mean you don't take it seriously. And let me explain. I have here, for example, my D&D Player's Handbook 5th edition. And the art here I find, for the most part, atrocious. There's a couple of cool pieces I want to say, if I can manage to put them on camera. The camera is mirrored, so... Alright, yeah, there you go. There's a couple of cool pieces, sorry. But the rest, I just find it completely unrelatable, because it just feels extremely cartoonish, and like the colors, there's like almost, I don't know, there's no grit to it almost, and I get what they're going for. It's all about a fantasy setting, and it's colorful and whatnot. But the point is, I really can't relate all that much to that, because, well, it's a game about adventures, and you really can't have adventures if you're not facing danger, and you're not really playing the role of, you can't really get into the role of someone who's facing danger if there's nothing that you can take seriously. There's nothing that seems dangerous. If anything, just becomes a funny meme, or as is in the sense of, sorry, as it is the way of the meme culture as well, to just sexualize everything and make like Gunner memes out of everything. And again, I'm not a Puritan, okay? I can see how sometimes these things are legitimately funny, and even I myself will have a laugh here and there regarding, like, I don't know, memes about Warhammer. Oh, here's some miniatures. But you know, this push for forced positivity in basically any sort of media, including our very language, this sort of banning a lot of words and whatever, which might become hurtful. I'm not getting into the discussion whether that is right or wrong. I'm just addressing that actually has an effect on how we censor ourselves, how we like chirurgically inside our heads, surgically chop away at certain emotions. We sort of like an aesthetic surgery, but inside our brain. Certain things we don't like, we just come in with a scalpel and just cut them away and change them for something new. But humans don't work like that. You know, to me, a grimdark hobby like Warhammer, or like the very dark and heavy metal music that I listen to sometimes, or horror movies or action movies, are not there for me to idolize this sort of violence, right? For example, in my country, we obviously have a huge problem with organized crime, and there's a lot of people who make profit out of making content about idolizing these characters from real life, right? These lifestyles, and I don't like that. I actually am I find it repulsive. But when we're talking about complete fiction, something that it is far away enough from the things that would actually be harmful to us in our world, but not far away from us in the sense of like you can still explore how you're affected emotionally and anemically when you're exposed to that in that universe, and it's almost as if the more alien the universe, the more fantastical it is, the safer you feel. It's like a sanctuary for you to explore your melancholy, your sadness, your hatred, your anger, because you have those emotions. All of that exists within you. And one thing, this is extremely hipster what I'm going to say, but this is like an actual realization that I had when I was more dedicated to learning to draw. I obviously didn't dedicate myself long enough to that, but there was a time way back when, I'm talking maybe 11 years ago, when I had tried to go all in on art and just develop my artistic skills, and I got in a huge fight with my family, and I told them, I want to draw for a living, and of course I didn't have the discipline and the environment in my life to go through with it. But regardless, I tried it, and I remember my very first breakthrough in my drawing technique that was the most impactful was figuring out how to do the shadows, basically, because before I would only just draw lines and just do like very two-dimensional characters and figures. But when I started to understand better and practice more how darkness and light interact, and how to, because in order to understand it, you have to study it. In order for you to put it on the canvas, you have to understand it and study it, right? So you can see here some of my very old still life drawings of stuff that I used to draw back in the day. Again, this is more than 10 years ago, which is wild that I am that old now. But anyways, my first, well, when I made that breakthrough, my first thought was like, whoa, I wonder if that's what life is about. And I realized how hipster that sounds, but that was my literal thought. I just sat there for a moment and just like, I was drawing something on the street, and I was like, I wonder if like this is the key to having a beautiful life. Just understanding the balance between darkness and light, and how to play with it, and that's how that's some understanding that sometimes, in order to focus on the light, just like in the chiaroscuro way of painting of the Renaissance, or the tenebris way of painting, tenebrism way of painting in the Renaissance, it serves like darkness and contrast serves to exalt. Is that a word in English? Let's just say highlight the things you actually want to focus on. For example, I started a few months ago, but it's been hard keeping up. But I started trying to wake up at 4:30 or 5 a.m. to go to the gym. Not every day, but as much as I can. Again, a few months ago. And it absolutely sucks because my job is very mentally and physically exhaustive. And I come home, usually I gotta do chores, and I just come home completely pummeled. So it absolutely sucks. But all that darkness and all that pain and all that absolute horridness of having to wake up when I'm already very tired earlier than I have to, it highlights more that I am, almost without me realizing, I have become a more disciplined person, a more calm person, a person who's more in control of my emotions. That this also applies when I have said I started, fixing my way of living, having a bit more of a clean life. I'm by no means like a fitness person or a healthy lifestyle person necessarily. I'll have a beer here and there. That being said, the change has been palpable of how much more in control I am of my impulses, right? And I even started doing intermittent fasting a while back just to see if I could, and it absolutely sucks because I find a lot of comfort in food. But anyways, the point is, giving yourself that contrast in life makes it so, for example, after fasting an entire night, I enjoy my breakfast so much more. So when all our media is getting cartoonized, is getting made more silly, and you can see this in just, again, I made an entire video just comparing the old art in Warhammer versus the new one, and how drastic the change has been. And this isn't always the case, obviously, but there's just something in the air. And I'm sure if you can't feel it, it is probably only because you're not old enough or because you haven't paid enough attention. But I certainly have, and I know of many people who have. How we try to just forcibly apply like a filter of smoothness into everything, into all our media, and it starts to lose sense. It has begun to feel empty, because again, the fact of the matter is that we will experience darkness in life. We will experience all the negativity of it, but that is also a spectrum, right? On one very dark, deep end of that spectrum, you have nihilism, you have sociopathy, and you have like again very evil things that we can characterize as evil if you're a dualist. On the not so far down end of the spectrum, you have things that just help you understand your human condition better, like nostalgia, you know, like melancholy, sorry. And how can you ever have a comeback story if you never have a hero who gets kicked on the ground, who gets put down? I believe in just like the alchemist would try to transmute one matter into another, even though some people think that was actually a more psychological. I guess if you're into Carl Jung, you'll understand this better. That's more a psychological process. He argues that the alchemists were talking about how to transmute one state of matter into another one. I think we can do something similar with art, and how when we make art about dark things, about things that scare us or make us uncomfortable, and we practice it, like I said before. In order for you to draw something, you have to study it, you have to understand it. So in order to you to put something dark on the screen, something terrible, or terrifying or hurtful or tragic, well then you have to study it and understand it. And we can thank the Greeks. I think we really owe it to the Greeks. You know, these are the masks of Thalia and Melpomene. I don't know how you say it in English, but Melpomene probably. I don't know how to speak Greek in English, but in Spanish it's Thalia and Melpomene. These are the masks of tragedy and comedy, right? How can you know what's funny if you don't know what's tragic? And what can you know what it is tragic if you're always laughing about everything? I think that is a huge issue with our media nowadays. We don't have are like the people who are writing stuff and drawing stuff. They perhaps have not experienced enough darkness or tragedy in their lives, which I am not wishing upon them. I'm not saying that they have to go through tragic things. I'm sure they have even. But the thing is, they don't study it. They just sweep it under the rug. They deny themselves those emotions. But no, in order for you to actually be a complete human, to integrate that shadow of yourself, you have to study it. And it is scary and it is terrifying, but a very healthy way of doing it is through art, through media, and not only consuming it but also producing it, because darkness can be beautiful. Look at goth culture. Look how crazy goth culture has become in the last few years. I remember getting so bullied at school whenever I tried to be goth or whatever, or I would dress with like big boots. I was never like huge into the whole goth fashion, because to me personally that like didn't feel very authentic to myself. But for example, I love gothic music and I love gothic themes, and I love the history of the gothic movement all the way back in history until now. I would say now I don't like it anymore. It's more like a label that people put on things, and I won't even get into that topic. But look how big it has become, just because people accept like, oh yeah, it can be beautiful. The whole meme about goth girls, I see it all the time. Oh yeah, they're not actually goth, right? Because most of them, because yeah, they have the makeup, they have the clothes, they have the everything, but their personality is completely empty. They're not really trying to represent, or not trying, they're not living, they're not embodying an archetype from our collective unconscious, which is the darkness, but they are proving subconsciously to all of us how we can consider that still beautiful. And we can see this again through the history of art, in sculptures, in plays, in like how many beautiful tragedies are there out there. And in paintings, obviously, and in movies. There's so many movies that I love that are tragic. I'm not saying everything that we consume, again, should be tragic or dark or sad. Again, it's all about balance. What I am saying is that you can't really understand or appreciate one thing without the other, and you can't really understand it either or produce it if you never delve into it. And what better way to delve into it than in the sacred space of a hobby, of a medium that makes it beautiful. Now, personally, me myself, we all have different standards for how much we can stomach in media. Personally, me myself, I'm not talking about like actual graphic, videos and things like that. I'm talking about art, basically, just art media. Again, music and shows and paintings, all that, and games, all that sort of stuff. We have different thresholds of how much we're willing to stomach, and we all have different aesthetic sensitivities. But like, there's some stuff that for me out there like really pushes it. It just feels wrong. It just feels like too close to the real thing. But there's some other stuff, and like specifically the art that I like to produce, that I get really engaged with. For example, this drawing here on the background, which I have talked of before in the channel, is this Chaos Space Marine. Yes, it's gross. Yes, it's morbid. I also, when I was drawing it, I thought it was very tragic, even if it's still pretty metal. If you're into that sort of stuff, I think that's what I was going for. Because without darkness, we don't have light. Without we don't have heroes. Without we don't have Luke Skywalker defeating Darth Vader without Luke Skywalker getting beaten by Darth Vader previously and losing his hand in this fight against his father. And so when he's actually finally about to strike him down, he looks at his new bionic hand and sees that his father also has one, and how they have become lost in this cycle of violence and revenge, and how that leads to the dark side. And then he has his hero moment. Only then, after he explored his inner darkness. So yeah, we don't have heroic, epic last stands without a horde of enemies and darkness that is just encroaching upon our hero. But in the end, we do have to keep in mind that there is a balance, right? We can't just take a deep dive into darkness and then never come out of it, because then it's only dark. Then we can't see anything. We lose ourselves in so much darkness. So it is always about keeping a balance. So I fully advise you to explore the darker side of your hobbies. And I'm not saying like do anything evil, do not harm anyone. No. Just expose yourself and try to find the beauty in the darkness. In regards to art, for example, don't just look at ugly art like my own, even though I certainly enjoy doing it. I understand that there's very, very many better examples out there of people who can do arte tenebrosa, the dark art, way better than me, who can make it beautiful, and even if scary and terrifying. For example, I will be ending the video soon, but one of my personal greatest favorite examples is H.R. Giger. I literally have a book of his works. I just love it so much, and I find it makes me very uncomfortable and terrifying, but to me it is also what I perceive. Like, it sort of puts an image of how I perceive a lot of what is going on with humanity, our integration with art, and it sort of helped me evolve to think in the way that of humans more as machines, and to catch myself when I'm just thinking as an organism, as a like machinic organism, and less as an actual human. And so all that horror and that I find in Giger, and that makes me uncomfortable, I would not be able to appreciate it if it wasn't also technically admirable, if there wasn't also something there that technically just caught my eye and that I get fascinated with, right? It's the same with Warhammer. I love the grim darkness in Warhammer. I love when the narrator just loses themselves in, or the writer rather, or the narrator in an audiobook, I guess. They lose themselves themselves in a narration, in a description of how, I don't know, the servitors are, or how a chaos temple is organized, or just how grimdark even like the most mundane things are, and how grim and how claustrophobic life can be in the 41st millennium, because I come from a city with like 8 million people living in it, and yeah, it's a concrete jungle, and it's very claustrophobic, and there's a lot of crime, and there's a lot of traffic, and there's a lot of poverty, and there's like people literally building in houses and building upon the house that was already there, and doing so over and over again until the house literally collapses, but they just don't have the money to live anywhere else, so they just rebuild it over and over again. It's incredibly dystopic, and if you don't believe me, just look up Mexico City, actually. But you know what, I actually miss my city a lot, and I actually made some of my best friends in life over there, and some of the fondest memories that I've had in life, I've had them there. I literally met my wife there. I literally was raised there. So what else can I say? And it's a very dystopic city. So when I'm reading dystopic stories, yes, I find them horrifying. I also find them awkwardly comforting in a sense, because I have been exposed to that. But since it is something so alien, so far, so separated from our actual reality, it feels safe to explore it that way. And that's why and I'll just finish this video by saying this. That's why I don't like politics talk in our hobbies. I can get into it all day. I do follow politics now and then. And of course I have my own political views, but I just think that my hobbies are way more important than any of that stuff. And I know what people say, like, oh, politics affect you. Like, no, yeah, I understand, but you don't get it. I'm never ever gonna meet any one of these politicians, but I am gonna meet the people that I spend quality time with. So that's what I mean. I don't give them politicians more time than they deserve, because they're not gonna give it to me. They're in it for themselves. 99% of them. I've met enough of them that I know this. So, or enough people in politics, I should say, that I know this, alright? So, I'm not saying they're not impactful, they're not important. I'm not telling you to ignore politics. I'm saying that's why I don't like politics in my hobbies. Because to me, it is like poisoning a pure well of creativity, a sacred well of creativity and just of human experience. Not necessarily creativity in the sense of like you creating something, but just you experiencing something from within the depths of your soul, whether it's, again, wherever medium you like. And you know what? Right now, I've had enough of darkness for the past few days, so I will be watch an episode of my comfort show while I cuddle with my wife and my pets. My comfort show is Community, by the way. Completely silly show, but I absolutely enjoy it. And then after that, I'll do some dishes and I'll go to bed listening an audiobook of Warhammer. You know, I'm reading the third book in the Carcaradon trilogy, so I guess listening to. So you can expect a review on those books soon as well. And that's just the contrast in my life. And you know what? I wouldn't change it for the world. It is amazing, and it just makes me enjoy my lived experience so much more. So that being said, I would love to read your thoughts on this topic. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Do you think that things are just becoming more cartoonized? And do you think that people are pushing, or that like the HR department took over the world and they're just pushing positivity down our throats? Or do you think that I'm crazy and I'm just exaggerating and I'm just, a grumpy old man that is angry that things aren't the way they used to be? So please just let me down. Let me down. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. But let me know in the comments down below what you think and how you feel about this topic. I would love to read your thoughts on it. With that being said, thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Remember, there are no female custodies. Ad astra, and I'll see you on the next one.